Lander County, Nevada, October 22nd, 1894. 6 in the evening. The message came in at 6 minutes past 6 on a Monday evening, and Clarence Webb had been the telegrapher at the Battle Mountain Station of the Central Pacific Line since 1887. 7 years of receiving and sending messages across the Nevada interior. He knew the hand of every regular operator on the line. The individual rhythm of a Morse sender was as distinctive as a signature. The pressure and timing of each operator's key work as recognizable as handwriting after enough years of listening. And the hand on the incoming message that evening was not a hand he knew. It was competent. It was more than competent. It was the hand of someone who had been sending Morse for a long time, and who sent with a precision and economy that suggested professional training beyond the standard commercial telegrapher's curriculum. But it was not a hand he had heard before on the Central Pacific Circuit, and the routing prefix on the message, the sequence of letters that identified the originating station, was not a station he recognized. He was 42 years old.
He had been sending and receiving messages professionally since 1879, 15 years of the specific discipline that telegraphy imposed. Accuracy in transmission, accuracy in recording, no interpretation, no editorializing. The message as received is the message delivered. His company regulations required him to retain a copy of every message he received. In the logbook he updated in real time as messages came through, and to forward originals to the addressee by whatever means the station's service area required. He followed this regulation without exception. He had filled 11 logbooks in 7 years at Battle Mountain and had never failed to retain a copy. The message that came in at 6 minutes past 6 on October 22, 1894, was addressed to the superintendent of the Consolidated Nevada Mining Company's Battle Mountain operations, a man named Walter Plumb, whose office was 400 yards up the main street from the telegraph station. The content of the message was not the kind of content Clarence Webb typically handled. He handled payroll confirmations, equipment orders, personnel transfers, the routine commercial traffic of the Nevada mining industry.
This message was not routine commercial traffic. He copied it into his logbook, as regulations required. He sent the copy by messenger to Walter Plumb's office, as regulations required. He kept the logbook entry, as regulations required. And then he did something the regulations did not require and did not prohibit. He reread what he had copied, and he thought about it, and he did not forget it. But here is what the Consolidated Nevada Mining Company, the United States Bureau of Mines, and the Nevada State Bureau of Mines and Geology have spent 130 years making sure you never read. Lander County occupies the central basin and range terrain of Nevada, crossed by the Humboldt River drainage and bounded on the east by the Shoshone Mountains and the west by the Toyabe Range.
In 1894, it was silver and gold country in the consolidation phase. The bonanza years of the 1860s and 1870s were over, and the independent prospector operations that had worked the range's surface mineral deposits were giving way to the capitalized extraction companies that could afford the shaft sinking and stamp milling required to reach deeper ore. The Consolidated Nevada Mining Company was one of those capitalized operations. It had been working the Battle Mountain District since 1882, with 3 active shaft operations on the eastern flank of the Sheep Creek Mountains, northwest of Battle Mountain. Its superintendent, Walter Plumb, 51 years old and a mining engineer of 20 years' experience, managed the 3 shafts and reported to a board of directors in San Francisco. The message that arrived at 6 minutes past 6 on October 22, 1894, had been sent from a station whose routing prefix Webb could not identify. In 1894, the Central Pacific's telegraph network covered the principal rail corridors of the western United States, with stations at every division point and most significant freight stops.
A routing prefix that an experienced 7-year operator on the Nevada circuit did not recognize was either a newly opened station, which would have been announced through the network's administrative bulletin, or a private circuit not on the Central Pacific's commercial network. Webb noted the unrecognized routing prefix in his logbook alongside the message copy, as he noted all anomalies in transmission. He had been doing this since his second year at Battle Mountain, because anomalies in the network were professionally useful to document, even when they seemed inconsequential. The specific language of the message is worth examining word by word, because it is the language of a protocol, not the language of a discovery. A man who has just found something unexpected in a mine shaft does not send the message, "Chamber located at 380 feet, North Drift, Shaft 2, contents consistent with prior finds." He sends a message describing what he found, asking for instructions.
The message Webb received describes a chamber as being located, past tense, a completed action, and characterizes its contents as consistent with prior finds. This is not the language of surprise. It is the language of classification. The sender has seen what is in the chamber, has compared it to a set of prior finds he has a framework for, and has determined that the current find belongs to the same category. He is reporting a routine instance of a known type.
The find at 380 feet in the North Drift of Shaft 2 at the Consolidated Nevada Mining Company's Battle Mountain operations was, to the sender of that message, one more data point in an ongoing series. The prior finds are the context the message assumes without explaining. Webb had no framework for what prior finds meant. The man who sent the message did. This is the detail that separates the Battle Mountain message from every other document in this series. The other documents, the well digger's measurements, the dentist's clinical record, the blacksmith's forge notes, are the records of first encounters. The people who made those records were seeing something for the first time and documenting it with the instruments and categories available to their professional training.
The Battle Mountain message is not a first encounter. It is a routine report sent on a private circuit by someone who had been categorizing chambers and their contents long enough to have a phrase, consistent with prior finds, that conveyed a complete assessment in 4 words. Prior finds. The suppression infrastructure had prior finds. The Battle Mountain find was one in a series that the sender considered familiar enough to classify by reference to others. How many prior finds? The message does not say. The private circuit does not say. The concrete pad at the base of the Sheep Creek Mountains does not say. The prior finds are in the suppression architecture's own records, wherever those records are kept, in the institution whose private circuit reached Battle Mountain and whose routing prefix was not on any commercial telegrapher's directory. The message itself, as Webb copied it into his logbook, read as follows. He later transcribed the content, word for word, into a personal letter he wrote to his brother in Missouri in December 1894. That letter is in a private family collection in Kansas City. The transcription in the letter matches the logbook entry, which is in the Battle Mountain Depot historical records held at the Nevada State Railroad Museum in Carson City. The message said, "Chamber located at 380 feet, North Drift, Shaft 2. Contents consistent with prior finds. Seal immediately. Surface acquisition authorized. Forward no written reports. Acknowledge by return."
It was signed with a 2-letter code that Webb did not recognize as any standard Central Pacific operator designation. He copied it. He sent it to Plum. He kept the logbook entry. Walter Plum received the message at approximately 6:30 that evening. The messenger who delivered it reported to Webb the following morning that Plum had read the message, dismissed the messenger without acknowledgement, and gone immediately to the shaft house. Within 48 hours, the North Drift of Shaft 2 at the Consolidated Nevada Mining Company's second operation was sealed with a poured concrete bulkhead. The sealing was not reported to the Nevada State Bureau of Mines and Geology, which required notification of any shaft closure under state mining regulations. It was not reported because Plum did not file the required notification. The Bureau's inspection records for the Consolidated Nevada Mining Company's Battle Mountain operations for the 4th quarter of 1894 show no notation of a shaft section closure. The closure happened. The record does not show it.
The surface acquisition referred to in the message was recorded at the Lander County Courthouse within 30 days of the message's receipt. On November 19, 1894, 28 days after the message arrived, The Consolidated Nevada Mining Company transferred the surface rights above the Sheep Creek Mountain shaft operations to a company registered in Delaware that had no prior presence in the county's deed records. The consideration was $1. The assessed value of the transferred land was $47,000. The deed transfer is in the Lander County Recorder's historical records. The connection between the deed transfer and the message Webb received 28 days earlier is not noted in any official record.
The connection is in Webb's logbook, which carries the message entry and the date, and the Lander County deed records, which carry the transfer and the date. 28 days. Webb did not make this connection in 1894. He made it in December 1894, when he wrote the letter to his brother and described both events in the same letter and noted that the timing seemed connected. Clarence Webb kept his logbooks.
This was standard operating procedure. Station logbooks were company property and were retained at the station for a period specified in the Central Pacific's administrative regulations. When Webb transferred to a different station in 1899, the Battle Mountain logbooks from his tenure remained at the station. When the Battle Mountain Depot was consolidated with the Winnemucca Division Point in 1912, the station's records were transferred to the Winnemucca Depot. When the Winnemucca Depot was eventually decommissioned and its records transferred to the Central Pacific's successor railroad, the Nevada State Railroad Museum received a portion of the station records as a historical donation in 1974. The Battle Mountain logbooks for the period 1887 through 1899 are in that donation.
Webb's logbook entry for October 22, 1894, is in the collection. The Nevada State Railroad Museum is in Carson City. The museum's archive is accessible to researchers by appointment. The finding aid for the Central Pacific Station Records collection describes the Battle Mountain Depot materials as operational logs, telegraphic records, and administrative correspondence, 1882 through 1912. The logbooks are in the collection. The entry for October 22, 1894, is in the logbook for that year. The letter Webb wrote to his brother in Missouri in December 1894 described both the message and the surface transfer and their timing, and it asked his brother a question. If a message instructs a mine superintendent to seal a shaft section and not to file written reports, and if the land above that shaft section is transferred to an outside company within 30 days, what was in the shaft section? He did not answer the question in the letter. He posed it and moved on to other family news.
His brother apparently did not answer it either. There is no surviving reply in the family collection that addresses the question. The letter sat in the family's papers for 126 years before the researcher Gordon Ashby located it in 2020 through a connection he had made between the Battle Mountain deed transfer and the pattern he had been documenting in West Virginia, Colorado, and Montana. The unrecognized routing prefix on the original message, the two-letter code that signed it, is traceable through the Central Pacific's operator directory for 1894, which is in the railroad's administrative archive at the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento. The operator directory lists every designated station and every assigned operator code on the Central Pacific network for that year. The two-letter code on Webb's message is not in the directory. It was not a Central Pacific station code. It was a private circuit code used on a network that operated in parallel with the commercial telegraph system and whose existence the commercial telegraph operators would have had no reason to know about unless a message from that circuit crossed their desk. Webb had not known the circuit existed. One message from it came through his station in 7 years. He copied it by regulation and noted the anomaly and kept the logbook and wrote the letter. The message had been sent by someone with access to a private telegraph circuit that ran parallel to the Central Pacific's commercial network in the Nevada interior in 1894. A private telegraph circuit in the Nevada desert in 1894 was not a casual installation. Telegraph wire, insulators, poles, and the associated labor of installation in remote terrain required significant capital and organizational capacity. A private circuit that could send messages to a mining superintendent in Battle Mountain and receive acknowledgments by return without using the commercial network's routing infrastructure
was operated by an organization with the resources of a federal agency or a major corporation and the operational preference for communications that did not pass through commercial telegraphers' logbooks. Webb's logbook was not supposed to receive this message.
The message was supposed to travel on the private circuit to an addressee who had a private circuit receiver at his station. The message came through Webb's commercial station because of a routing error, the wrong circuit, the wrong operator, the wrong logbook, and Webb copied it by regulation before anyone could intercept the copy. The routing error is documented in a follow-up message that came through Webb station 6 minutes after the first, on the same unknown circuit, addressed to the same recipient and reading, "Disregard routing, message sent in error via commercial line, original content stands." Webb copied this message too, as regulations required. It is in the logbook on the same page as the first message, 6 lines below it. Someone, on the other end of the private circuit, had realized the routing error within 6 minutes and attempted to flag the commercial transmission as an error. The attempt came too late. Webb had already copied both messages before the correction arrived. Both are in the logbook. The correction confirms that the first message was real. Gordon Ashby found the Webb letter in the Kansas City Family Collection through a process that illustrates how the documentary record of the Silent Mine series connects across geography and time. He had been working in Nevada mine records in the summer of 2020 as part of his broader research into the Bureau of American Ethnology's field operations, and he had identified the Battle Mountain surface transfer of November 1894 in the Lander County deed records, while tracing the pattern of $1 transfers above mine incident sites. He found the deed transfer and noted the date. He then searched the Nevada State Railroad Museum's Battle Mountain Depot records for the weeks before and after the transfer, looking for any commercial telegraph traffic that might connect to the mine operations. The logbook was in the collection. The October 22nd entry was on the page. He photographed it. He found the Webb letter through a genealogical research trail that began with the Central Pacific's employee records. Webb's name was in the company's 1894 personnel register as the Battle Mountain station operator, and continued through census and death records that placed his descendants in Missouri. He wrote to the family in December 2020. The family confirmed they held correspondence from Webb and provided access to the 1894 letter. Ashby read the transcription of the message and compared it to the logbook photograph. They matched. He filed his Freedom of Information request to the Smithsonian the following month. The process Ashby used, deed records to telegraph records to personnel records to family correspondence, is replicable by any researcher with access to the Nevada State Railroad Museum's archive, the Lander County deed records, and the genealogical research tools available through standard library systems. It is not a process that requires specialized access or institutional affiliation. It requires time, patience, and the understanding that the documentary record of the suppression architecture exists in pieces in multiple archives, connected by dates and names and the specific geography of the Nevada interior, waiting for the researcher who is willing to follow the trail from one archive to the next. The Tartarian framework places the Battle Mountain message in the operational context of the suppression infrastructure that the Silent Mine series has been documenting across 9 states and 6 decades. A private telegraph circuit carrying messages to mine superintendents about sealed chambers at depth, instructing no written reports, authorizing surface acquisitions. This is not the communication of a commercial mining company managing its operations. This is the communication of an institution that was monitoring mine operations across a geographic range sufficient to require dedicated communications infrastructure, responding to chamber discoveries with a standard protocol that could be transmitted in a brief coded message, and managing surface acquisitions through a financial mechanism that the commercial deed record shows working in Nevada, West Virginia, Colorado, and Montana in the same period. The private circuit is the most significant element of the Battle Mountain record because it implies the existence of infrastructure. A private telegraph circuit in the Nevada desert in 1894 required poles, wire, insulators, line maintenance crews, and terminal equipment at both ends. The terminal equipment at the Battle Mountain end was at the Consolidated Nevada Mining Company's shaft house, Plum's location, where he went immediately after receiving Webb's message. The terminal equipment at the sending end was at a location the routing prefix does not identify, and the Central Pacific's operator directory does not list. That location was connected by physical wire to Battle Mountain, Nevada, in October 1894. It was connected by the same infrastructure to other mine operations across the Nevada interior. The private circuit's routing prefix appeared in Webb's logbook once in 7 years. But a circuit built to reach Battle Mountain was built to reach more than Battle Mountain. Walter Plum left the Consolidated Nevada Mining Company's employ in the spring of 1895, 5 months after the North Drift sealing and the surface transfer. He moved to San Francisco. He died in 1911.
His personal papers, if they exist, have not been located in any accessible archive. The Consolidated Nevada Mining Company dissolved in 1903, 9 years after the surface transfer, with its remaining active shaft operations sold to a successor company. The successor company's records are in the Nevada State Library and Archives in Carson City. They cover the period 1903 through 1921.
The records from the Consolidated Nevada Mining Company's Battle Mountain operations prior to 1903, including any records Plum would have maintained about the North Drift closure and the surface transfer, are not in the successor company's records. They are not in any accessible archive. They were not transferred to the successor company as part of the operational sale. They have been absent from the record since 1903. The land above the North Drift of Shaft 2, the surface rights transferred to the Delaware Company on November 19, 1894, is currently held by a limited liability company registered in Delaware, whose registered agent in Wilmington traces to a corporate services firm that also holds registered agent relationships for 23 other Nevada landholding LLCs with no commercial activity on file.
The parcel covers 41 acres on the eastern flank of the Sheep Creek Mountains, northwest of Battle Mountain. No mining permits, no grazing permits, no agricultural designation. A locked gate on the access road from the county route. The gate has been there since at least 1978, the earliest date it appears in the Lander County Assessor's property photographs.
A motion-detecting camera was mounted on the gate post in 2020. The camera faces the road and the approach to the sealed shaft collar, which is visible from the gate as a concrete pad approximately 15 feet in diameter at the base of the mountain. The concrete is the 1894 bulkhead. It has been there for 130 years. Clarence Webb, 42 years old, October 22, 1894. The message came in at 6 minutes past 6. He transcribed it into the logbook as the dots and dashes resolved into letters and the letters resolved into words, his hand moving in the automatic way of a man who had been doing this for 15 years, the pen keeping pace with the key, the logbook filling one line at a time. He sent the copy to Walter Plum. He kept the logbook. He wrote to his brother in December and asked the question he had been thinking about for 6 weeks. The logbook is in Carson City. The letter is in Kansas City.
The question Webb posed to his brother in December 1894, what was in the shaft section, is answered by the logbook entry, the deed transfer 28 days later, the correction message that confirmed the first message was real, and the concrete pad at the base of the Sheep Creek Mountains that has been there since the week after Walter Plum went to the shaft house on the evening of October 22, 1894. The concrete is the answer. The logbook has the question. The question and the answer have been in different states for 130 years. The phrenologist in Boone County, Missouri, who broke his measuring instrument on the skull from the mound, is the next case. His professional record and Webb's professional record are built from the same instinct. The man whose work requires precision documentation, documenting precisely, keeping the copy, not understanding yet that the copy was the only thing that would survive. The Central Pacific's private telegraph circuit in the Nevada interior in 1894 was not the only private circuit operating in parallel with the commercial network in the American West during the Suppression period.
The Western Union Telegraph Company's administrative records from the 1880s and 1890s contain several notations of unidentified traffic on circuits adjacent to the commercial network's Nevada and Colorado corridors. Traffic that the commercial operators logged as anomalous, but whose source they could not identify because the routing prefixes were not in the commercial directory. The Western Union administrative records are at the Smithsonian Institution's National Museum of American History in Washington, in the Telecommunications History Collection. Several boxes of records from the 1880 through 1900 period are accessible to researchers. The anomalous traffic notations are in the operator log summaries submitted by division superintendents to the company's administrative office. They are not highlighted or indexed as significant. They appear as routine anomaly notations in the standard reporting format. A researcher who reads through the division superintendent summaries for Nevada and Colorado for the period 1887 through 1900 will find them. The archive is open by appointment. The finding aid describes the Western Union collection as administrative records and operational files 1850 through 1930. The Nevada and Colorado division records are in the collection. The anomalous traffic notations are in those records. They have been there since